Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order and welcome you to the Hamden-Wilbraham Regional School District School Committee meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. I see that David Sanders is here recording from Wilbraham Public Access Channel. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? We will do roll call in alphabetical order. Bill Bontempi? Cheryl Caruana? Here. Sean Kennedy? Here. Lisa Murray? Rich Rediker? Here. Mike Tirabassi? And Michelle Boudreau? Aye, here. If you would please stand, Rich will lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will begin with new business. We'll begin with grant awards, and that will be with Mrs. Ford.
Wow, that was fast. Good evening, everybody. I am excited to announce 2 grants that we have received in the district for this year. The first grant is for Mile Tree, Stony Hill, and Green Meadow Schools. It's $142,738 through the Early Literacy Grant from Research to Practice, Evidence-Based Early Literacy. This is year 2 of a grant we received last year. Just to review the purpose of the grant, it's a competitive grant for early grades literacy. And the purpose is to increase teacher knowledge to implement evidence-based, inclusive, culturally responsive practices in early literacy through professional learning on evidence-based, inclusive, culturally responsive early literacy. So the funds can be used for some of the following things, specifically the 4 categories: stipends, substitutes, evidence-based materials and screener or progress monitoring tools, and DESE-approved literacy consultants. So we were able to provide, last year, we were able to provide stipends for teachers to participate in a core grant team at each of the 3 early literacy buildings. And we were able to provide coverage for substitutes, and we will again for teachers to attend professional development provided through the grant. The grant also funded the DIBELS 8 early literacy screening tool last year and again this year. And we have 2 DESE-approved literacy consultants that will continue working with us. So each school, again, has a core grant team to guide their early literacy efforts, including the implementation of the new core literacy program, Amplify CKLA. There will also be after-school professional development for K-3 teachers who have signed up for that, provided throughout the year to support the program implementation and the early literacy data analysis through DIBELS 8. And we will have the 2 DESE literacy consultants to provide on-site coaching and support. They also help facilitate or are the primary facilitators for the after-school professional development. So this year, with the continued support of the literacy consultants and our district literacy coaches, we'll take the next steps to using data-driven decision-making to inform instruction, specifically targeting the Tier 2 for students. This grant will help us to address the strategic plan initiative regarding MTSS systems and practices. And by providing additional support to teachers and administrators in their efforts to effectively use data to target instruction, we'll be able to ensure our students have a solid literacy foundation on which to build their future school experiences. So we're really excited to be awarded the grant again this year. There's a potential for 1 additional year, and we will definitely be applying for that as well. The other grant that, oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Just in terms of the stipends, if you could just elaborate on what the stipends are used for along with the core grant team.
Yep, the stipends there's 2 tiers of stipends, one for core grant team members at each building. Those were posted last year, posted again this year. And those core grant team members help to guide the professional learning, facilitate the DIBELS testing, all of the things that need to happen connected to that. So that's one level of stipend. That's $1,000 for core team members. And then some educators have chosen to participate in just this 6-hour after-school professional development and that is a $400 stipend for the year. Sure. The other grant that we're so excited to get is for expanding high-quality mathematics materials. We received the grant for $19,000. And the purpose of this competitive grant is to provide funding for districts to purchase high-quality core mathematics instructional materials, things like textbooks or digital resources, teacher materials, and professional learning. So funds from this grant have been used towards the purchase of Imagine Learning Illustrative Math, the digital platform for instruction for grades 6 and 7, the middle schools. And we selected illustrative, the Imagine Learning Illustrative Math connected to the work that we've done already with IM K5, so making that connection, but also, according to Ed Reports, Imagine Learning Illustrative Math 6 through 8 met all the expectations for alignment, including standards, rigor, and mathematical practices, and the expectations for usability. So they satisfy the DESE requirements for high-quality instructional materials. So yeah.
Will the vast majority not be textbook driven?
You can use it, the grant for textbooks, we purchased the digital platform, so the teachers have a digital platform for instruction. Students can also engage in the digital platform as well. So there aren't textbooks that go along with that.
Thank you.
Lots of instructional resources, but not, that are available, but not textbooks.
Get more room in the closets.
Definitely, we need that. We also, funds were used towards the purchase of Imagine Math, which there's a lot of imagines in all the titles, so it gets a little confusing, but Imagine Math is an adaptive digital math platform that offers personalized math learning and practice to meet individual students' needs. So again, it can support helping to fill those gaps that students have in their math learning, and it's adaptive. Teachers can also access the platform to use that information to do small group intervention and other supports for students. The grant also provides for professional development for teachers, so that PD focused on program implementation and platform usage for both Imagine Learning Illustrative Math and Imagine Math were funded through the grant. So that was part of our Welcome Back to School professional development for our grade 6 and 7 math teachers.
And would you say that Imagine Math would be more for the special education students who need it?
No, not at all. What is really important to know about it is all students have an access point. So if you're struggling with certain concepts, it will adapt to support you there. If you are kind of flying through some concepts and you're really strong in some areas, it will adapt and provide that learning opportunity. So trying to provide for what all students need to go to the next level.
Thank you.
Yep, this grant will be able to continue our efforts to vertically and horizontally align the math curriculum K-12 and continue to provide rigorous math teaching and learning for all our grade 6 and 7 students. So we're very excited to have received those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Congratulations.
Thanks.
We will continue with the middle school SOAR program, and that's Gina Roy and John Georgia.
Just pretend you're on The Price is Right.
Reach in and grab a $100 bill from one of you. So thanks for having us. I know Gina's not feeling well, so I'll do all the talking and then I'll leave and you can ask her all the questions. So we're here to talk about Project SOAR. Project SOAR is also called the Wellbeing Promotion Program. Really came about from, at least my involvement started at our Climate Institute over the summer, where Sarah Pfeffer was here. Sarah Pfeffer is a tremendous resource consult for us in the district. I think she's here every Wednesday, right?
Every other Wednesday.
It uses the basis of the program is using positive psychology. There's a screening program for all of our kids I brought some examples of the questions that the kids will answer as well. And it will create randomized groups for those kids to, that really benefit. Even the happiest kid at middle school generally looks unhappy, so we're trying to identify who those kids are that can really benefit from using the positive outlook. Our counselors have spent a tremendous amount of time. 2 of the 3 PD days at the start of the year, they were with Sarah and her grad students or doctoral students that are helping run the program, all 4 of our counselors. So they spent the 2 days. We spent 2 hours last week also with Sarah and her team, with Gina as well. It's really, so the process is, there's an opt-out letter that goes to parents, which went out, I believe, last Monday. We'll collect the parents who've chosen to opt out their students. All the kids will take a brief screening. They said 5 to 7 minutes. They'll do that in their advisory on the 27th of September. They'll collect all the data, and then they'll create a cut score. And from that cut score, they'll develop 2 randomized groups, completely random. And both of the groups will include kids at different levels of happiness and need additional supports. The first group is the now group, and the second group is the later group. The now group will meet, I believe it's 45 minutes a week for 10 weeks with counseling staff, groups of 6 to 10, so 4 groups of 6 to 10, upwards of obviously 40 kids. And then there's a next year group, which they'll receive similar support at that time too. After the 10 weeks is up, they'll meet monthly and get additional support throughout the school year. Parents will also be given resources to help promote the same thinking in their homes. There is a permission for parents, not only the opt-out, but once those students are selected and the groups are identified, the parents still need to get permission for the kids to take part in the process. If I'm leaving anything out. So that the screening will be done electronically, and so it's going to be a Google form that they've created. Some of the questions that they ask it's a rating scale, and if you can see that essentially a strongly agree to a strongly disagree. Questions like, my life is going well, my life is just right, I'd like to change many things in my life, I wish I had a different kind of life. Those are some questions. I would describe my satisfaction with my family life as blank, terrible, all the way to delighted. So we'll see how middle school kids answer those questions. And then on the bottom, there's a scale of very slightly or not at all to extremely, and they're asking for the kids' emotions. So it's 5 to 7 minutes on a Google form, and then the hard work begins for the staff, Sarah Pfeffer and her staff, and our counselors to identify those groups. Hopefully get some kids some help and thinking differently as they move through middle school and on into life. Happy to answer any questions. Did I leave everything out?
No, I think that was great.
I love the idea of this program. I love that you're doing it. My question is there any kind of stigma, like, oh, you're in the sore kids, you're one of the depressed kids? Is there anything like that? How are you protecting the kids from something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of groups that happen every day in the school, and the kids will have a rotating schedule, so they won't be missing one class or one related art or one academic class. They'll be missing different classes, so it won't be a pattern. I mean, is there a chance that somebody might ask them where they're going? Sure. But I think as a general rule, there's support groups, there's lunch bunches, there's things happening all over the building every day. This is just one more of those that, and there are counselors. It's not somebody coming in from outside. There are school counselors, adjustment counselors. All 4 of them are trained.
Perfect. That's just, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it would be counterproductive, certainly, if that would cause. I believe she said they're working with 2 other schools in the area, one of the schools in Long Meadow and one in Springfield.
Yeah, I think Dan Sickle is one of them. He's one of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's Glenbrook or Williams. The other thing that she mentioned is usually the cut line, the number of kids that they've identified ranges from 32 to 19% of kids in the schools that they've worked with in the past. 32 being the highest percentage of kids that they've identified as needing the support, and 19 being the lowest. one hand, I hope we're on the lowest end, but every kid can use a little boost.
Excellent, thank you.
If you consider reaching out to the 2 other school districts that are currently using it and just get some feedback from them, what
We could, I think
they've
they're,
experienced?
I think they're in the same process as us, I think. So I think
It's
they're,
just beginning.
they work with other schools, but I think that's the 3 that they're currently working with. But yeah, I'd love to see how they're doing as well.
Yeah,
It would be great for the counselors in all the schools to get together and share ideas.
that's what I was thinking, because you don't know what you don't know.
Anything else for John or Gina? Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will move on to the school committee goals discussion. I guess for starters, has everyone had an opportunity to look at the school committee goals from last year? Maybe next year? No? Okay. So.
Michelle, just a quick one on this. Weren't the goals that we voted on last year were supposed to be 2-year goals?
Okay. So that was just the discussion to see, just to look at the goals, kind of a review, looking at if there's anything that we're looking to do. It clearly aligns with the strategic plan,
Right.
which isn't changing for the next few years. So we should be on track, but just, we do have some new members and just looking at to see where we are.
Perfect, that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. Okay, so we will continue. So we will look at the draft of the HWRSD school calendar for the 24-25 school year.
I make a motion to accept the proposed calendar for the 2024-2025 school year.
It's actually not on as a vote tonight, it was just to review. We were still getting some feedback from staff,
Oh, okay.
which we got as late as a couple of hours ago. I think that based on what I've gotten from them, we'll probably be bringing the same calendar back unless there's any requests for changes from the school committee members. Most of what they had provided was sort of editorial, so we might readjust some numbers and some alignment and things like that, but I think this is the essence of the calendar.
I rescind the motion. Right.
Just for discussion, I obviously was involved in the past and go with the flow with what everybody really wants, but I assume the big discussion is always, do you start before or after Labor Day? So you go a few days before Labor Day and then 3-day weekend and you come back, as opposed to, and then hope that June doesn't go too long. Is that been a big discussion in the past, or is that always before Labor Day now?
I think we're always before Labor Day now.
Okay, just in general, there's not many PDUs on here, but I wondered why they were always in the middle week. Just for planning,
So
for families.
that came up. I can just say that if you have a professional development day on a Monday or a Friday, participation turns out to be lower. So it's to maximize everyone's involvement.
Anyone have any questions, other comments? Okay, so we will look for the next draft at a future meeting. Thank you for that. Okay, we do have the need for, it is time for public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public comment this evening? Okay.
So for the weeks that we didn't have public comment, I had this really great timer that I brought in and I left it at home. I apologize. So what I will do.
I will not even be close to 2 minutes, but you time.
You got it, all right.
So we do ask that you do state your name, your affiliation with the district, and then just make sure you speak into the microphone and you have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Awesome. Hello, my name is Rick Lajeunesse, and I'm a father of a 3rd and 7th grader in our district. Does that meet your qualifications? Perfect. I wanted to speak tonight on the topic of the current proposals to move our 8th grade students to the high school. When I learned of these proposed plans, as a father of a 7th grade daughter, I had concerns. I decided I needed more information about how my 13-year-old daughter would be safe in a school with children up to 5 years older than her. I assumed I was not alone in these fears and that I would seek more information to learn what steps would be taken to separate the younger and older students. So I attended a recent planning meeting where it was clear to me that if moved to Minnetonka, The 8th grade students will not be separated, as in the case in neighboring communities with similar student makeups. I have been informed that students of all ages would be combined before the start of the school day, during lunch, and after school, and I have some concerns and questions I would like to have on the record. Years ago, the proposal was to have one school for both Hamden and Wilbraham students in grades 6 through 8. At that time, it was clear that the Wilbraham Middle School was not appropriate to house all of the students. Yet, we are now being told that all but 7 students from Hamden in grades 6 through 8 have been approved for transfer into the Wilbraham Middle School. Why were these transfers approved when the outcome was putting the school 184 students over the recommended educationally sound student capacity and 79 students over the maximum practical student capacity? I have been told there were 135 possible grade configurations. Is it possible to hear more about plans that would not involve moving the 8th grade into the high school? And what are the current barriers to returning to the previous plan of one larger regional middle school? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we will move on to the subcommittee updates. There is an update from Lisa. So actually, why don't we, if you don't mind, we go out of order, so I can pull up the other update. So Sean, would you mind beginning with the Finance and Operations Subcommittee?
Yeah, we had our meeting yesterday, and we were reviewing the capital expenses that we have coming down the line. We also talked about norms on what we want to have for people on the committee from the towns and from the school committee, that if someone's not going to be there, you want to get someone else to be in your stead. You know, we don't want to have an empty seat if you're not, able to make it. We did say that each meeting would start with the savings that the district has the cost cutting and the savings and stuff. We're going to start each meeting with that, because that was a big thing that the towns were looking for last time, just so they can see how fiscally prudent the administration is here. We also talked about the care of this building with those capital expenses, and that it's a lot bigger question than just, a few dollars here and a few dollars there. We really need to fund this building so that what happened to the last minute chunk will not happen to this building. It's going to be a much bigger conversation the next time we meet. But we had some good conversations, good starters. Anyone else like to comment? Mike? Michelle?
I think that was a pretty good summary. I mean, I gave a bit of a heartfelt talk.
You gave a beautiful soliloquy, and we were all weeping. It was amazing. The summary of my soliloquy was, I felt like I was like horrified watching history repeating itself, because the current Minichog building that we're in really didn't need to be built, really should not have needed to be built, and it's because the existing Minichog High School capital needs were not kept up with until the building became unsalvageable. And I felt like we were struggling, and we were on a pathway to repeat that. But I felt like the representatives from town finance were very receptive to our comments, and people are looking forward to working together on solutions to make sure that doesn't happen. To make it clear, it's we're in the 12th, 13th year of this building, and we need to replace internet infrastructure, which could run, which we're planning, be about $1 million. And there are some serious expenses that are coming to maintain the $65 million building. Well, it was $65 million, 13 years ago. So part of that was a recommendation from Mark Ducey from Finance in Wilbraham, that we actually have someone come in and look at this building and the needs that it has, and come up with a priority list and, you know, this is what needs to be done now, this is what needs to be done next year, and really work out this plan, because though the administration and the principals and the janitors and everything have really come up with a great list, and they have intimate knowledge of all the buildings, that they thought having a professional come in here and you know, for want of paying someone to tell us how much money and where we need to spend it, but they thought that this would give more credence to the numbers rather than just something that the principals or whatever decided on. So that's something that we'll be talking about at a future date in this meeting, and hopefully get the votes to, you know, maybe push forward on that.
And the date of the next meeting?
And the date of the next meeting is the 18th?
Monday,
18th, yeah, it's October 18th. Oh, just a quick one. We're going to be meeting once a month until December, and then it's going to be twice a month through budget, and if needed more, of course, we can do more, but that's the cadence that we're going to do every couple weeks during those months. And again, if more is needed, we can do more. Thank you, Michelle. Anything else you want to?
Nope.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do the curriculum subcommittee update that Lisa had shared. So they had a meeting, I believe it was before the last school committee meeting. So there was an overview of new staff orientation, professional development, and convocation. Some of the professional development included elementary CKLA, responsive classroom, Imagine Math Digital, mental health first aid, middle school ELA Amplified, illustrative math, climate safety equity data, vision of a graduate, mandator reporting training. Book study, building thinking classrooms in mathematics, and vertical alignment of curriculum. The curriculum subcommittee meetings will be held before the first school committee meeting of the month, and they'll be at 5:30. I'm not sure, are they in here or in here? Okay, so thank you. Any questions about that? That's up. Okay. So then I will do the planning committee update. So our last planning committee update is sort of part 1 of 2. So we will share the conversations that we had at our next meeting after we have our next planning meeting, which will be on Tuesday, September 26th at 5:30 p.m. here in the IRC. That's it. Okay.
Michelle, could you talk a little bit about the stuff that Steve was talking about, the different curriculums and stuff? Because I've been talking to people in the community and some people around this table who that's their concern. And I think just giving a little more information on that, is that okay?
Yeah, sure. One of the reasons we were going to hold off on that is because we weren't able to discuss the sessions that John had with the community. He had 6 sessions, and there were a lot of questions that came up, and then this kind of folds in with the information that we received and tying it into the conversation that he had with the community members. So, but John, if you want to speak to the schedules that he shared.
You don't have to give specifics, but just let them know that what the thought processes are and that they're really working at it.
Sure, I think that's a good summary, but I'll also add that, you know, we are looking at 2 different schedules right now. One for 8th grade, one would align more with the blocks, the high school essentially breaking each block into 2 pieces. And one that more closely models the middle school schedule. The reason for that is that in the first model, if you keep the sort of length of an 8th grade class as a multiple of the length of a 9th through 12th grade class, there's more opportunities for students to take courses in the high school. The second schedule has the benefit of trying to maintain the length of the math period. Because as you know, we increased the length of the math period at the middle school this year because we found teachers are having trouble getting through the curriculum in approximately 45 minutes. So those are 2 things that are in discussion right now, and again, no decisions have been made. One thing that is common in both is having the unified arts at the end of the day so that teachers from the middle school can come over and provide unified arts for students. I think that's an important piece for the public to know at this point. If we moved forward, students wouldn't lose their teachers or their contact with those unified art teachers. They would be itinerant teachers who'd be here to serve the students at the end of the day.
The only thing I would add to that is, from what Steve Hale was saying, was that they have multiple different schedules that they're looking at. Those are the two that seem to be the brightest, but they're really digging into it. They're really doing, I think, a stellar job at this point. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the LPVET Collaborative. Lisa's not here. There's nothing to report for negotiations. And the Policy Subcommittee, have you met yet? Has there been a meeting for Policy Sub? No. Okay. No. And then Technology Subcommittee? No. Okay, so we will continue with this consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries 5.
Just one quick one. Do we have any warrants?
No one's doing them on Thursday, she said.
We'll figure out a way to get it signed.
I can swing by on Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, and no one is opposed? So the motion carries 5-0. Okay, so we will have the superintendent's update.
Thank you. I will start with enrollment. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the format in your packet was not what you're accustomed to because the person who does that was on vacation. So in your packets today, you have an update that has just the same numbers I reported in the format that you're used to. A few other questions involving enrollment have come up in the past couple of weeks, so let me just address those. One was actually at the last meeting, question about how the new enrollments shift the breakdown between the towns, and with the increasing numbers, I would say primarily at Mile Tree, there is a shift a little bit farther to Wilbraham, or a little bit the opposite way. We see the total number of students from Hamden decreasing from 19.93% to 19.75%. Of course, that's as of today. The numbers that everything is based on is the October 1st count, so there may be some changes between now and then. Another question that was asked was about our school choice and Metco. As you recall, the school committee voted to accept up to 25 students in 9th grade as a combination of choice and Metco. We had 3 students come in through Metco and 22 by school choice, so we're full. There are 10 students on the wait list if any of the choice students were to decide that this wasn't working out for them. We also accepted 4 choice students in Green Meadows in 2nd grade and 3 Metco students in Green Meadows in 5th grade. So that is enrollment and choice. And now I'd like to turn to the multimedia part of my presentation. One of the strategic plan actions for this year was to expand Raptor technology. And I'm not necessarily expecting all members of the public to know what Raptor is, so we have some videos to show you. So, Erin, if you would show the first one, please.
When it comes to protecting your students and staff, knowing exactly who is in your building at all times is an absolute necessity. And unfortunately, traditional paper and pencil signage sheets offer a false sense of protection and aren't the real solution for keeping our schools safe. Raptor Technologies Visitor Management is a state-of-the-art system that instantly screens for sex offenders, custody issues, and banned visitors. And you always know who is in the building, why they're there, where they are going, and who they are there to visit. With Raptor, you can access an emergency panic button and silent alarm on every screen, and maintain accurate records of all visitors, volunteers, and contractors that can be accessed school or district-wide, protecting your students from over 750,000 registered sex offenders in the U.S. In fact, every single school day, Raptor issues an average of 75 sex offender alerts and 150 custom alerts, most often custody issues, in our clients' schools. That's a level of protection your district can't afford to do without. Find out why Raptor is trusted to protect more schools than all other visitor management systems combined. Visit us online at raptortech.com to learn more or schedule a free demo.
And you don't have to call them to schedule a free demo because you're about to get a free demo. Last year, we had trialed Raptor at Mile Tree School, and to date, we've expanded it to all of the elementary schools. So all schools except for middle and high are currently using Raptor. And the next video will show you what that looks like.
Hi, what's the name of your first career visit? Come on into the office. Hello, how are you?
I'm well.
He looks very shady.
Yeah, well, it's in the system. It's checking all the criminal databases.
Is that your driver's license?
Yep.
So what if a person doesn't have a driver's license?
We have an option for that.
What did you sign?
I signed the sign-in sheet anyways, but
Sign the sheet on
it's just a backup. And they're printing out my badge now.
Thanks very much. Have a sparkling day.
So that's what Raptor looks like. That's what the sign-in process at our district is. We'll be coming to all schools shortly, but we have done a massive expansion from 1 to 4 schools this year, and probably will have all of them by the time we're done. To the question of what if an individual doesn't have an ID, we can set them up in the system. They would just have to meet with the administrator to create an ID.
So there wouldn't be a fast entryway for that? So they'd have to go through. So if somebody came in for the first time and didn't have an ID?
Right, they'd have to meet with the principal would verify their identity and then get them into the system, so when they come in the future, they can have a badge printed out. That looks like this. I still have my badge.
What about people, so if they've come numerous times, they've been in the building, 30 times, they show up, they don't have their ID, is it assumed that, the person up front knows them? Someone can vouch for them? Do they still have to? Will they be turned away?
I can tell you that we've had some experiences with that at Mile Tree over the course of the last year. My understanding is most of them have been resolved by the person saying, oh, I forgot my license in my car, let me go back and get it. So, we do try to make sure that everyone follows the routine every time. If it was an emergency situation, we were certain of the person's identity. I'm sure that some discretion could be used, but we're trying to make sure that people follow the process every time so that they get used to the sign-in procedure. I mean, the real benefit, in addition to making sure that there aren't any new alerts that come up around custody or other issues that might cause us to have a heightened level of awareness about a visitor in our building, is in the event of an emergency, it provides us with more accountability. We can take the laptop out and we know how many visitors we're looking for as we try to evacuate the building.
When students walk in, do they have any IDs? What if somebody just walks in with the rest of the students and kind of looks like a student?
Students don't have ID at this time, so that could be a weakness in our procedures.
I know what some schools are doing nowadays is Evolve, which is one of the companies that they use for Patriots games and pro athletes. You don't have to take stuff off anymore when you go in. It's like using AI to this is looking for weapons, if we care about that, just to, as people just walk through, you don't have to delay one at a time, they just kind of mass walk through. And that's getting big into schools nowadays too. And they can actually use AI to determine, using all kinds of things, is this person a suspicious character or not? Are they likely to have something?
Could be the next gen.
I have a couple quick questions. So why is there need for a backup? Because during their ad, that we just saw first coming in, it says you don't need to have these, you know, irrelevant sheets, so why are we still doing the sheets?
I actually don't know. I think it's just because we've been using the sheets for so long, it's kind of hard to get off of the habit.
Okay. The other thing is, so you're scanning my driver's license. Are we keeping that data, or is Raptor keeping that data? What are they doing with the data that they get from us?
Who owns the data?
Who owns the data?
So according to the information from Raptor, they don't maintain the data, and the only databases they're searching for are custody issues that we've entered into the system. So that's our own alerts that we've put into it, or individuals who are on the sex offender registry.
So if something happens here, they don't have a backup copy of everyone who's been in our schools?
I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know.
So what happens if somebody comes up on the list, like a custody problem or a sex offender?
So if someone comes up as a custody issue, that is probably, as you saw from the data, the main thing that comes up. It would be the responsibility of the office staff to figure out who the child can be released to. That is probably the most frequent complication that school staff run into around visitors to buildings. It's usually when a visitor wants to take a child home. We need to make sure that the visitor is someone who the parents have identified as able to take the child home. If it's a sex offender, then we have protocols to make sure that we are providing enhanced surveillance of the individual. You know, there may be a sex offender who also has a child in the school who may need to visit a teacher or may need to bring medication to the nurse. You know, so that's not something that's going to be stopped, but it is something that's going to be watched a lot more closely than it normally would be.
What about getting into cars after school? Isn't that just as much of a risk at times?
Dismissal is I would say a nail-biting time for most school administration. It's why you set up procedures to try to make the dismissal as orderly as it can possibly be, because you're always trying to make sure that you don't release a student to a person who's not supposed to be picking the student up.
I know some of the international schools I've worked with, they have people with a mobile app checking, you know, every car that comes in to making sure that person's identified, that they're on the good list, that they're allowed to pick the kid up.
We have had a principal who's talked to us about the app, so I don't, again, that might be next gen, but we don't have that technology at this point.
A couple questions. Number one is, when somebody rings the bell, there is a camera that turns on. How wide of an angle? I've never actually seen the angle on that camera. Is that a pretty wide angle lens? To be able to catch somebody who is, let's say you have one person standing by the camera and another person who's standing just off.
I would say that in most schools, you basically can just see the area in front of the camera. It's not a wide angle lens, it's basically the person who's right there.
So having an additional camera at the front entrance certainly would be beneficial, being able to see. Because the one thing that I think about is if you had a team, right? So you have one person ringing the bell and then you have another one just standing behind. Now they let them in, because where I see the problem is that the whoever the secretary is sitting at the desk, they're looking at the screen saying, yep, come on in. And they might be busy with other people, and all of a sudden 2 people walk in. One disappears into the hallways and one comes into the office.
Yep.
So I see that as a potential weakness in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, cost. How much is it?
Each Raptor unit was in the neighborhood of, I think, $1,300. There is an annual fee. I'm not sure how much that is offhand. Right now, that's covered by grants.
So I was just going to ask that. So that's covered by school safety grants?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. That's it. That's all I got.
With the door, you know, the JCC was really, really concerned, you know, in Springfield about picking people up. And I used to pick my grandkids up there. And if you didn't have your little pass, just wait till somebody goes in and walk in with them. They couldn't defeat that. So it's almost like the weakness of almost anything. Apartment building, somebody, you just wait, somebody buzzes, you walk, follow them right in. And I've never seen anybody say, no, you've got to stay outside and use your own pass. So it's a weakness no matter what system you have.
I don't think kidnapping a geriatric patient would necessarily be as big a risk as kidnapping a child.
No, this is actually this is the preschool.
Preschool?
At the JCC, they were very concerned about the attacks on, you know, different Jewish facilities.
I will say that it's cutting against sort of norms of polite society. You go to a door and you want to hold it for the person who's behind you. And, you know, I've noticed staff entering buildings being really good about telling parents, no, please don't hold that for me. Let me buzz myself in, or let me sweat myself in. And, you know, I've tried to do that myself when I'm at a building and other people are around. Even people try to hold the door for me and say, no, please don't, you shouldn't do that. So it is an educational thing, and it's a change of behavior, but we do the best we can to keep our building secure.
But doesn't that also give you the accountability that you're looking for? So in case there was an emergency, you actually know who's in the building.
Exactly.
You might be looking for a teacher that, you know, that actually didn't swipe in and they're in the building, or they, you know, or they've left the building, we don't know.
Exactly.
Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that it is an issue, like, so at Mile Tree, the example, you buzz someone in, they come in and they have to go into the office. They could just keep going. So ideally, any future renovations we do to buildings should have something that comes into an office where it's locked and secured, and then you're cleared to go to move out.
There are lots of designs you can create to sort of bring visitors into a vestibule or an intermediary space so that they don't have full access to the building. Those are some things that we've discussed, as you can imagine, knowing the cost of the railing. It's quite a project. Another thing that can be done, which is maybe a little bit more realistic financially, is putting the kiosk outside. So Raptor does also have kiosks so that people can self-service themselves and then come to the door showing that they've already been cleared. So that might be something that we could look at in the future.
Bingo, that's great.
You have to remember though, any type of entryway modification that you have, you also have to take into consideration for emergency egress, right? So you can do it like a simple, like prison systems simply have a lock system, right? So you have, when you go into a prison, the minute the door locks, when you go into a prison, when you work in a prison ward or wherever, the door behind you will not open until the door behind you is physically locked. So it creates a trap, so you can't. So, but when it comes to emergency egress, obviously, you know, you gotta be able to open up doors. So I don't think there's an easy solution. I like the kiosk the best. I think that's a really neat way to do it.
I really like the sound of the outdoor kiosk. It avoids putting the people in the office in a potential uncomfortable position of having someone already there in the building that they might, something could come up on that unit and they could end up in a conflict with someone that hopefully is only verbal. But if they're on the outside of a locked door, it's a better situation.
So we can keep looking into those technologies as we continue to expand Raptor.
Excellent, thank you, John.
You're welcome. I also wanted to just say a couple of words about MCAS and accountability because today was the big release of the 23 data. So this is just a quick overview, and you know, I anticipate giving a full accountability report in November, just as I did last year. This is sort of the first process. I've seen my own data for a while, but I haven't seen all the rest of the districts. As you know, that kind of fits into the way I like to present information. But I can give you some information at a high level and tell you that we have some reasons for celebration that seem immediately obvious to me. First, we're exceeding targets for reducing student absenteeism at all levels, reducing the rate from 15.1 to 10.9% in non-high school grades, and taking it down from 24% to 12.6% at the high school. The dropout rate for high-needs students, low-income students, and students with disabilities have all declined from 2.2, 2.8, and 3.1% to 1.4, 1.4, and 1.5% respectively. None of our schools was identified as requiring assistance and intervention, and the district as a whole was classified as making substantial progress towards accountability progress. Student achievement levels in English language arts and mathematics have rebounded to pre-COVID levels at Minnechaug, And Minichog's overall accountability percentile increased from 67 to 73%. In the lower grades, the implementation dip I had cautioned us to prepare for as students and teachers adjusted to 2 new core programs was hardly noticeable. Although other implementation studies have found student achievement can be reduced for 18 months or longer while students are perfecting new progress, the percentage of students meeting and exceeding expectation on the math, MCAS, and grades 3.8 actually increased slightly, while the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations in English language arts declined only 1%. So to be able to maintain stable student performance while completely overhauling the core math and ELA instruction is a win, and one that sets us up for greater success in the future as students and teachers hit their stride with their new programs. And so there'll be a time at a later date, probably in November, where we can talk about some of the things that maybe aren't so good in some of the areas of improvement. But a member of this committee once said, we don't do enough celebrating the good things. And so tonight I just wanted to lead with that, the community, as they start to digest the accountability data that's coming out. And that's my report.
Here.
So one last question on the security. What about sports events and things? Nobody has to get IDs for that, correct?
No. They're some are ticketed, but none are ID'd.
Sports events in general recommend, or they are a huge risk. And, you know, I mean, we've seen it in recent months, violent attacks taking place at, you know, large inner city football games. There's always vulnerability. I'd like to commend the Wilbraham Police Department because they've always got 3 or 4 officers at the football games. I think the football games are probably the largest venue that is vulnerable. Those guys, you know, they're not standing around talking. They're working the crowd. They're watching stuff that's happening. They're looking at the bleachers. They're walking behind the visiting bleachers. So they're all around that field. So they do a nice job. I don't think there's any way that you can mitigate all of the risk, but I think that, you know, for what I've seen at the games, there's definitely a presence.
I talked about, you know, you spend a lot of money on, you know, watching kids people coming in during school hours, and then there's a basketball game, a volleyball game, and somebody just kind of walks in, starts wandering around the halls and gets lost, and who knows?
Yeah, well, why do you think we had such a robust discussion in finance about changing out all of our night janitorial staff and outsourcing it to a private company? So if you want to talk about some heated discussions, I'll tell you that, you know, when you talk about opening up your doors at night and giving people the opportunity to access your building, and then you talk about outsourcing janitorial services, that's why it was so heated.
Back to the MCAS. Congratulations, Sean. That's really great news. I mean, really happy to hear that.
Thank you, but let's be clear, I didn't teach anybody. The credit really goes to the teachers, the principals, the paraprofessionals, the cafeteria workers, the bus drivers, everybody.
And the students. They had to take the test.
Is there anything that anyone would like to add to future agenda items? Okay. We do have the need for executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Reorganization of Student Services Office.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So
Just one quick discussion. Are we going to be in here? Or are we going to be in there?
Can we stay? Okay.
What's that?
I guess we're going to.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be moving into that. Okay, so we will do roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
Cheryl? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Rich? Aye. Mike?
Aye.
Myself, aye. We're moving to executive session, and we will be adjourning from executive session. Thank you. So we are
Thank you, everybody.
Here at 7:24.